A detective gets a late-night call from a terrified woman saying, "It's happened again." He knows at once someone is dead. When the phone rang for the second time, I already knew who I would not find alive. The first ring had caught me halfway through a cigarette, the ember glowing like a dying star in the darkness of my office. Rain whispered against the window, slow and steady, as though the city itself was trying to wash away something it didn't want to see. I didn't answer then. Maybe I hoped whoever was calling would lose their nerve. Maybe I already knew it was too late. By the time the second ring sliced through the silence, sharp as a scalpel, the air had turned heavy, like it does before a storm breaks. I reached for the receiver with a hand that wasn't entirely steady. A voice came through. A woman's. Low, trembling. "Detective, it's happened again." That was all. No name, no address, just that broken sentence, and then the click of the line dying. But her voice carried something else beneath the fear. A kind of finality. I stubbed out the cigarette, put on my coat, and stepped into the wet night. There's a certain sound that only empty streets make after midnight. The echo of your own footsteps following you, pretending to belong to someone else. I walked toward the place I already knew too well. It was the old boarding house on Ashcroft Street, the one that still kept its lights burning even when there was no one left to pay the bills. And as I turned the corner, I saw it. One dim window on the second floor, flickering as if the bulb were breathing. For a moment, I could have sworn a silhouette moved behind the curtain. But when I blinked, it was gone. The rain fell harder. My watch read 12:14 a.m. I reached the door, my hand hovering just above the handle. Something was whispering on the other side. Not voices, something softer. Like a sigh drawn out too long. I pushed the door open, and the smell hit me first. Like metal. And roses. The smell clung to the air like an accusation. Roses, sweet, heavy, almost intoxicating. And beneath it, the metallic tang of blood, sharp enough to taste. The lobby was dim, lit only by a chandelier that swung slightly though there was no wind. The walls were lined with faded wallpaper, the color of old bones. Water dripped steadily from somewhere unseen, marking time like a slow heartbeat. I called out once. No answer. Only the soft creak of the floorboards above me, as if someone was shifting their weight, waiting for me to move. I started up the stairs. Each step moaned beneath my boots. Halfway up, I noticed something strange, a trail of petals, crimson, scattered along the steps. They looked fresh, too fresh for a house that hadn't smelled of life in years. At the landing, I saw the door with the light behind it, the one from the street. Room 207. The door was ajar. I pushed it open slowly. The bulb inside flickered, throwing light and shadow across the room in slow, uneven breaths. On the bed lay a woman in a white dress, her hair spread like ink on the pillow. Her skin was pale, lips almost blue, eyes open just enough to catch the light. I knew that face. It was the same woman who had called me. Her hand still held the phone receiver, its cord stretched across the floor. And on the wall behind her, written in something dark and glistening, were 3 words. "He isn't done." That was when the chandelier downstairs went still, like the entire house had stopped breathing. And from somewhere inside the walls, a low humming began. Not electrical, not mechanical. Something alive.it started low, almost beneath hearing, a vibration more than a sound. Then it grew, deep and wet, like the voice of a hive waking from sleep. I took a step back, scanning the room. The woman's eyes seemed to follow me, though I knew she was far beyond seeing. Her phone slipped from her hand, hitting the floor with a hollow thud. The humming crawled closer, threading through the walls, circling me like something hunting by sound. I turned off the light. If it was alive, I didn't want it seeing me before I saw it. In the dark, everything breathed differently. The air thickened, warm with decay and perfume. I could hear the faint rustle of something moving behind the plaster, something that scraped, dragged, and then clicked. Then silence. I moved toward the window, cracked it open, and the night air hit my face like cold water. That's when I heard the whisper. Not from outside. From right behind me. "Detective." I spun around. The room was empty. The body hadn't moved, but her mouth was open now, just slightly. The word had come from there. The humming rose again, this time sharper, angrier. A bulge appeared on the wall near the ceiling, pulsing with the rhythm of a heartbeat. I pulled my revolver and fired once. Plaster rained down, revealing something glistening beneath, a network of black, vein-like roots, wet and twitching. The bullet didn't stop them. They only shivered, then started to spread. That's when I heard the door slam shut behind me. And the whisper came again, from all around. He's here. The door slammed so hard the glass in its frame cracked like ice. My instincts screamed to move, but every shadow in that room felt alive now, thick with a presence that wanted me still. The humming deepened into a vibration that I could feel in my teeth. The walls seemed to pulse with it, each beat like a slow inhale. The veins I'd uncovered were crawling outward, thin and oily, tracing toward the floorboards. Then came the footsteps, not from the hallway, from inside the room. Soft at first, bare feet on wood, then closer, deliberate. I lifted the revolver again, sighting along the trembling barrel, but there was nothing there. Only the woman's body, the half-light, and the smell of roses turning sour. Then the bulb above me flared once, bright enough to blind, and when it dimmed, he was standing at the far end of the room. Tall, dressed in black, soaked from the rain. His face was wrong, blurred, as if the air around it refused to settle. But his eyes were sharp, pale, almost silver, and fixed entirely on me. "Detective," he said softly, "you shouldn't have come back." The humming stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I steadied the gun. "Who are you?" He smiled, slow and joyless. "The one you promised to forget." Before I could answer, the window shattered inward, glass spraying like rain, and the light died completely. In that instant of perfect blackness, I felt a hand brush my shoulder. Cold, wet, familiar. And then, from the direction of the bed, the sound of someone standing up. The sound was unmistakable, the soft shift of a body rising from sheets. I froze, every instinct screaming that this wasn't possible. The woman had been dead, skin cold, eyes glassy, blood long dried. Yet now, I heard her feet touch the floor. Bare, slow, deliberate. The air turned dense, pressing against my lungs. I could hear her breathing, shallow, uneven, as though remembering how. "Don't," I whispered into the dark. I didn't know if I meant don't move or don't be real. A faint rustle answered me. Fabric sliding over wood, the creak of the bed frame. My hand fumbled for my lighter, flicked it open. The tiny flame sputtered to life. And there she was, standing just a few feet away. Her head tilted slightly, eyes glinting with the same dull light as the flame. Her lips were split, and from the corners of her mouth trailed thin threads of something black, almost like ink or tar. She smiled, not the smile of the living. "Detective," she croaked, her voice layered with something else, something beneath. "You were late again." Behind her, the man in black was gone. The only trace of him was the faint scent of wet soil. I backed toward the wall, but the veins that had crept through the plaster were already reaching the floor, twisting together, forming shapes that almost looked like fingers. The lighter flickered once, twice, and went out. In the dark, her voice was closer, right at my ear. "He knows you remember now." And before I could move, something cold pressed against the back of my neck, like a kiss made of ice and rot. When her lips, or whatever they had become, touched my neck, a flash tore through my mind, quick and violent. Not a memory I'd made, but one that had been put there. A rain-soaked road, headlights spinning out of control, my own hands on the wheel, slick with blood that wasn't mine. And then her face, the same woman, smiling from the passenger seat. Only in that memory, she was alive and whispering something I couldn't hear over the crash. Then it was gone. The room rushed back around me, breathing and groaning like a lung filled with smoke. I stumbled forward, hitting the wall. The veins recoiled as if burned. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, a pulse answered mine. Slow, enormous, waiting. I lit another match. Its weak glow spread over the floor, the walls, the woman. She stood motionless now, her head bowed, black tears dripping onto her dress. The words scrawled behind her, "He isn't done," seemed to shimmer wetly, though I could have sworn I hadn't seen them move before. "What did I do?" I whispered. She lifted her gaze. "You opened the door." "To what?" Her mouth trembled. "To him." The flame died again, snuffed out, not by air but by something intentional. And then, beneath my feet, the floorboards began to breathe. Slow, deep, each inhale pushing dust and rose petals into the air. And with the next exhale, something whispered from below, muffled by wood and earth. "Detective, come back down." The voice seeped up through the cracks, soft and wet, as though the house itself were speaking with lungs full of soil. "Come back down." The syllables stretched, distorted, blending into the slow creak of the boards beneath my feet. The woman was gone. Just gone. One blink, and the spot she had stood in was nothing but a puddle of something black that hissed when it touched the air. The scent of roses thickened, now cloying enough to choke on. I crouched, pressed my palm to the floor. It was warm, almost alive. Something below shifted, and for a moment I thought I felt fingers press back from the other side. I drew the revolver again, pointless comfort, and moved toward the door. But it wouldn't budge. The knob twisted uselessly, cold and slick in my grip. From somewhere behind me, wood cracked. A seam split open in the center of the room. Boards pried themselves upward, curling like ribs from a chest. Beneath them, darkness, and a faint red glow, pulsing in time with that impossible heartbeat. Then the voice again. Closer now. Not beneath anymore. "You left me there, detective." The whisper came from behind me, right by my ear, though I hadn't heard a step. I turned fast. No one. Only the window, rain slashing across the glass. Lightning flashed, and in that instant I saw it reflected, a face right beside mine. Pale, eyeless, smiling. I fired. The glass exploded outward. Rain and wind flooded in. But when I looked again, the reflection remained, hovering in the shards, mouth still moving. Whispering. Not one voice now. Dozens. And all of them saying the same thing. Downstairs. The voices blended with the storm outside until I could no longer tell where the house ended and the night began. Downstairs. Every echo of that word vibrated through the floorboards, drawing me toward the staircase like a chain around my throat. The door finally gave way when I shoved it. Too easily, as if the house had been waiting for me to leave the room. The hallway below was darker than before, the air thick and cold. The chandelier no longer swung. It hung straight down, dripping something thicker than water. The humming started again, lower now, deeper, a sound that lived in my bones. I took the steps slowly, revolver raised. Halfway down, the light from the broken window flickered across the lobby, and for a second, I saw a movement. A shadow slipping from one wall to another. No sound. No weight. When my boots hit the last stair, the humming stopped. Silence pressed against me, heavy as a hand on the back of my neck. I turned toward the parlor. The door was open just enough to show the faintest glow from within. Red, the same pulse I'd seen under the floor. The smell of roses was almost unbearable now, sweet enough to sting. I pushed the door wide. The room was empty, except for the hole. It gaped in the center of the floor, wide and round, edges lined with splinters like teeth. The red glow came from somewhere deep within, pulsing softly. And then I heard her voice again, floating up from the dark. "Detective, you never buried me." Something moved in the hole, slowly, rising. Wet hands, pale and shaking, reaching for the edge. And then I saw the face that followed. Mine. For a heartbeat, I thought the darkness was playing tricks, some reflection, a cruel echo of fear. But then it spoke, and there was no mistaking the voice. "Why did you leave me down here?" It was my voice. Ragged, hollow, the way it might sound coming from lungs filled with water. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the revolver. The figure hauled itself higher, hands gripping the jagged edges of the floorboards. Its skin was pale, stretched too tight, veins pulsing faintly with that same red light below. It looked up at me with eyes that should have been mine, but weren't. They were empty, glassy, the color of old frost. "I don't understand," I whispered. It smiled, an expression I recognized, the same one I wore when I thought I'd gotten away with something. "You don't want to understand." The hands pulled harder, and its shoulders emerged, bare, covered in grime, and rose petals stuck like scabs. "Do you remember the bridge, detective?" I froze. The image from before, the car crash, the headlights, flared in my mind again. Only now I saw more. The steering wheel crushed against my chest. The water rushing in. A second voice screaming my name as the river swallowed everything. But I had walked away. I knew I had. I got out. I said, more to myself than to it. It laughed. A bubbling, awful sound. "You never left. You only forgot which one of us drowned." The glow in the pit brightened, flooding the room in red. Shadows rippled along the walls like they were alive. And from somewhere far below, something massive shifted, stirring the earth. The floor shuddered. My double reached out a trembling hand. "Come back, detective," it said softly. "You belong here." And when it smiled again, I saw something moving behind its teeth, something still breathing. Its hand hovered inches from mine, mud-streaked, veins glowing faintly like coals beneath ice. The smell of the river came with it, algae, silt, and the faint sweetness of decay. I aimed the revolver at its face. "Stay down there," I said, though my voice broke halfway through. The double tilted its head, exactly as I would have. "There is no down there," it said. "Only what you left behind." Then the floorboards cracked wider. The red light spilled upward in slow, pulsing waves, and within it I saw shapes drifting, limbs, faces, fragments of memories that didn't fit the world above. The hum returned, louder now, woven with whispers. Every one of them spoke my name. I fired once. The bullet tore through the reflection's shoulder. No blood. Instead, the wound bloomed into water, clear at first, then black as ink. It laughed again, but now the sound came from everywhere, from the walls, from the hole, from inside my own chest. "You can't kill a memory," it hissed. "You can only drown it again." My knees buckled. I felt the house lean, wood groaning like a ship in heavy seas. The walls rippled, and the veins that crawled across them burst open, spilling petals and thin rivulets of water. I turned toward the door, but it wasn't there anymore. Just more wall, soft and breathing. Behind me, something splashed. I looked back just in time to see my reflection sink, dragging itself into the hole, pulling the darkness with it. But before it vanished completely, it spoke one last time, quiet, almost tender. "See you on the bridge." The glow died, and in the silence that followed, I heard it again, the sound of footsteps upstairs. Slow, familiar, mine. Each step above me landed with a rhythm I knew by heart. The same uneven pace, the same slight drag of the right foot, the way I walked when I was lost in thought. Only now, it sounded like a stranger wearing my habits. The air in the parlor thickened until I could see my breath fogging. The hole in the floor had gone black, but it still breathed, exhaling cold air that smelled like the river and old iron. I forced myself up the stairs, gun still slick in my hand. The house felt smaller now, the walls closer, the air thinner. As I climbed, the steps above me climbed too, always one floor higher. It was leading me somewhere, or maybe away from somewhere. When I reached the top landing, I saw that every door stood open. Every room glowed faintly red, like light through flesh. Inside, shapes hung from the ceiling, photographs, hundreds of them, spinning slowly on strings. They were all of me. Different times, different cases. My life laid out like evidence. In each one, a shadow stood behind me, barely visible, but always there. The footsteps stopped. Then, from the far end of the hall, a voice whispered, "Stop chasing yourself, detective." I turned, and there he was again, the man in black, standing under a flickering bulb, water dripping from his coat. "You opened the door once," he said. "You'll have to close it from the inside." Before I could answer, the walls began to bleed light, red, bright, alive. Every photograph burst into flame without smoke, burning from the faces outward. The man smiled, stepping back into the light. "Come find me where it began." Then the hallway folded inward, the floor tilting, the world twisting, and I was falling again. Not through space, through memory. The fall wasn't fast, it was slow, deliberate, as if the world wanted me to feel every inch of the descent. Images blurred around me. Rain on glass, headlights flashing, water climbing up my chest, her hand slipping from mine. When I hit the ground, it wasn't with pain, but with recognition. I was standing on the old bridge outside the city, the one they said collapsed years ago. Only now it stood whole again, the planks slick with rain, the river below black as oil. The sky above hung too low, swollen with clouds that didn't move. The man in black waited at the center. His reflection shimmered beneath him, but the river's surface didn't ripple. It looked more like a mirror than water. "You remember now," he said. "I remember the crash," I answered, voice shaking. "But not you." He smiled, slow, patient. "I was what you left in the water, the weight you thought you could walk away from." Lightning split the clouds, flashing white across his face. For the first time, I saw the truth of it, my own features beneath the ruin. My eyes, My mouth twisted into something that almost pitted me. You killed her, he said. You called it an accident, but you were the one who grabbed the wheel. The words hit harder than any fall. The memory bloomed again. Her screaming my name, my hands turning the wheel too late, the river rising to swallow our voices. I tried to save her, I whispered. You tried to save yourself. The wind howled. The boards beneath us groaned like the bridge was waking from a long sleep. The man took a step closer, and I mirrored him without meaning to, two halves drawn by gravity. Close the door, he said. Let me back in. And then the river began to rise, reaching for us with hands made of light. The water climbed the supports like it had been waiting for this moment. Thick, slow, deliberate. Each wave whispered as it rose, carrying with it fragments of the past, the echo of her voice, the hiss of the tires, the shattering of glass. The man in black, the other me, stood at the center of the bridge, his arms outstretched as though greeting an old friend. The river light reflected in his eyes, bright and merciless. This is where you end, he said. Where we end. The wind was a scream now, tearing at my coat, my hair. I gripped the revolver tighter, though what good a weapon could do against my own ghost, I didn't know. Why now? I shouted over the storm. Why come back after all these years? His grin faltered. You called me. I what? When you followed the voice to the house, when you opened the door on Ashcroft Street, you thought you were chasing a killer. But all you did was remember. The boards beneath us split. The cracks glowed red, bleeding light. I felt it then, the pull of the water below, like invisible hands tugging at my legs. The smell of roses filled the air again, thick and wrong. I looked down. The river wasn't water anymore. It was petals. Black, swirling, endless. She's still down there, he whispered, waiting for you to finish what you started. He stepped closer, and as he did, I noticed his outline flicker, as though his body were unraveling into mist. She doesn't want you, I said. She wants peace. His smile broke into something raw, almost human. Then give it to her. He reached for me. His fingers sank into my chest like smoke into cloth. My body turned cold where he touched. And then, the world tilted. The bridge groaned. We were both falling. Back into the river of petals, the fall felt endless. The air thickened into liquid, the sound of the storm muffled until only my heartbeat remained. Heavy, slowing, steady as the toll of a distant bell. Petals surrounded me, thousands of them, black and red, swirling in slow spirals. They brushed my face, my hands, each touch colder than the last. The scent of roses grew so strong it bordered on rot. I realized then what they really were. Not petals. Fragments of burned photographs. Through the haze, I saw her. She stood on the riverbed, dress weightless around her, hair drifting like smoke. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with life, but with memory. The woman from the house. From the car. From every dream that ended in drowning. And beside her, him. The man in black. The other me. He knelt before her, his face calm now, eyes closed. He remembers, he said. You can let go. Her gaze shifted to me. Can he? The current pulled at my legs, urging me closer. I wanted to speak, to explain, to beg forgiveness for a truth I'd spent years burying beneath whiskey and work. But when I opened my mouth, water poured out, black, thick, carrying whispers that weren't mine. She reached toward me, fingers trembling. Do you still hear it? The humming. It had never stopped. It was everywhere, in the current, in my skull, in the beating of my heart. Yes, I managed to choke. She smiled sadly. Then it's not done. The river brightened, a blinding scarlet, cutting through the dark. The other me turned to me one last time. You can't escape it, he said. But you can choose who stays. His form began to dissolve, torn apart by the current, scattering into the glowing tide. And suddenly, I understood what he meant. Someone had to stay here. The river pulsed around me, alive with the light of all I had tried to bury. Every face I'd failed to forget floated just beneath the surface. Hers most of all, pale and still, lips curved in that quiet, sorrowful half-smile I'd carried like a wound. The other me was almost gone now, a shape unraveling into the current, his outline breaking apart into drifting shards of shadow. And yet his eyes, my own eyes, stayed fixed on me until the end. Choose, he whispered. The words sank deep, heavier than the water itself. She stood before me, the woman, her hand outstretched. The petals spiraled around her like a crown of black snow. "You opened the door," she said softly. "Now you can close it." I looked down. Beneath us, through the glowing current, I saw the world above. The rain still falling over Ashcroft Street. The empty house waiting with its lights flickering faintly, like a heartbeat. One of us had to return. One had to keep the door shut from the inside. And for the first time, I understood the mercy in forgetting. I took her hand. Cold, light as breath. "You don't have to wait anymore." She smiled, and as she did, the humming ceased. The river fell silent, its light fading into deep, endless black. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the office floor. The phone was ringing. Once, twice. Rain whispered against the window. The air smelled faintly of roses. I reached for the receiver with a steady hand. A woman's voice came through. Calm this time. "Detective, it's over." I wanted to ask who she was, but the line clicked dead before I could speak. Outside, the night was still. My reflection in the window smiled back at me. Tired, older, but alone at last. Or so I thought. Because when the third ring came, it wasn't the phone that was ringing.